Today I'm going to go through a Tier 5 Gold training program on how you should set up your program and then talk a little bit about what we offer to help you have the tools to do your training program properly. But a little housekeeping to start. We are recording this. We will share the recording with webinar participants, and I'll send you the slides so you don't have to worry about taking screenshots and things like that. I do need to put a disclaimer in here that I am an independent vendor in the Linehaul space. I am not FedEx, and I talk a lot about what is in the Linehaul space, but you need to be aware of that. So let's get started. All right, so let's go through a little bit of the overview of why training is required in the Linehaul space. And I have some folks that are on this webinar that are brand new in Linehaul, and they may not realize what the consequences of not having an approved training program in their contract and not using it correctly. So let me go through some of this. The first thing I want to talk about, and I think this is where a lot of contractors struggle. They think, all right, I have my training program, I've purchased it from someone, and I've got it covered, and the training program is going to take care of everything. And that's not necessarily the truth. If you think about safety is changing human behavior with your drivers. So that's the first thing I want you to understand as we are talking about building your training program is what are you and your managers doing to change the behavior of the driver that's driving your truck? And that's the real focus here on getting this changed. So if you think about the metal program, so for those of you who are new to the Linehaul space, a Linehaul contractor is graded on a metal program and they're graded on safety tiers. So what you're graded on as a contractor is availability, service, and then safety. But safety is weighted heavier than the other two. So if you don't have your safety program dialed in and you're not doing the right things with your training program, then you're not going to do well in the metal program under safety. And this is what gets a lot of contractors in trouble on that. So this is another problem I see with a lot of contractors. You need to read your contract. And when it comes to the training program, it is in Schedule G, Section 2.3B1B. And if you don't have a qualified training program and have it in place and you're not following the compliance requirements of that training program, then you are subject to a $75,000 indemnity if you're involved in an accident. And that's where a lot of contractors get in trouble, is they get their training program and they have a accident and the driver was not compliant at the time of the accident, and then they receive notification from Linehaul that says, all right, because you did not follow the contract requirements, you owe us $75,000. They say it's an indemnity charge, but it's acting almost like a fine. If you think about indemnity, let's say you had a $5,000 accident, there's $5,000 in damage, then the indemnity should just be within that $5,000. But in reality, you could be facing up to $75,000. I've actually had a contractor that had 3 of these in 1 month and had $225,000 in indemnity issues. And that's the kind of situation that can get you out of business in a hurry. The other thing that you need to be aware of is if you don't have a qualified training program, then you are essentially, because of Schedule G, in breach of contract. And what happens there is you get a letter of assurance, you have an OTC issued against you, which is points against you, and you may be subject to losing your contract if you don't fix that breach of contract. So let's get on the right foot. You're going to have a qualified training program. You're going to do the things that I am telling you throughout this presentation here. Then there's the safety tiers. So we had the metal program, the 3 different things on availability, service, and safety. And now we've got the tiers here. And Tier 5 is the best. That means you're doing everything just great. Tier 4 is still good. Got a few issues going on there. Tier 3, you're right in the middle of the pack. And Tier 2, you're starting to get more business discussions from Linehaul on what you need to do to correct your safety deficiencies. And Tier 1, you're probably in an OTC, which is an opportunity to cure, and you're at risk of losing your contract. So there's a lot of benefits to Tier 5. If you think about our business, when Linehaul is looking to award new runs and new business, they're looking at their contractors that are a Tier 5 and possibly a Tier 4. So we have a lot of different folks that are at Tier 3 where you could still be considered for new business, but it changes all the time, where the competition in your area may be so great that there's plenty of Tier 5s and Tier 4s to award new business, and they go, Tier 3 is not cutting it anymore. And so if you're a contractor in that Tier 3 or Tier 2, Tier 1, then the strategies I'm going to talk about during this presentation is going to help you with achieving that Tier 5. Let's talk about compliance now. All right, we got the area in the contract where this is in the indemnity. And I got this question yesterday from an AO who was just checking to make sure that he was having a reality check on what his compliance is. So to be compliant, you have to have a qualified training vendor. You have to enroll your driver in that program on day one. You've got to have them complete their onboarding training, and then they have to complete monthly training by the end of the month. So best practice, because this is the question that AO asked me yesterday, well, how long do I have to do the onboarding training? To be compliant, you have 30 days. But that's not the best practice. The best practice is to do the onboarding training prior to the first dispatch. So the way I talk to contractor management is you've got the road test done. You're going to start dispatching tomorrow. You need to make sure that the driver completes their onboarding training before that first dispatch. Why? I see a lot of incidents happen first 24 hours. They have a door pull incident, they have a trailer drop, they have something happen. They didn't receive that onboarding training to cover what needs to be covered, and then they get themselves in trouble. And then you get points against your safety results summary report, and then you're going to have issues with those safety tiers. So thinking about that type of stuff is make sure that when you're doing the video training portion with your training vendor, and hopefully it's us, then make sure that you do that before the first dispatch. Now, the monthly training. The way I like for contractors to have the monthly training is to set your deadline on the 15th of the month. Don't wait until the last day. Why? The issue that we get into is on the last day of the month that the driver is involved. They arrive at the terminal. The manager goes, oh, I can't dispatch you tonight because you haven't done your training. That's one scenario. So the driver's at the terminal trying to do their training at 8 o'clock at night before they dispatch to get it done before midnight going over the last day of the month. Because then once you go over midnight on the first, then you are exposing yourself to that $75,000 indemnity. The second one is the manager's not checking the training and not making sure that the driver is doing their training, and therefore that causes an indemnity issue also. So make sure you do the onboarding training before the first dispatch. Make sure you set the deadline for your training the 15th of the month, and make sure that your managers are watching that stuff to make sure that that stays in those two deadlines there, and you won't have indemnity issues from the contract. I do a lot of manager training. I've done 3 on-site manager trainings in the last 3 months where I had a room of multiple contractors, multiple managers, and the aha moment I've had from that training is the managers don't know what they don't know, and that translates to the drivers not knowing what they don't know. I'll give you an example. I had training in last month where I had an AO with over 25 years experience in the network. He was sort of not happy with being in my training because it's 5 hours of training. And he goes, I don't even know why I'm here. I've been doing this 25 years. I give my 5 hours of training. That same manager comes up to me afterwards and says, I didn't know half the stuff that you said, John. I didn't know that I was supposed to be doing this on that. The issue is we get so into our operations that we think we know what's going on or doing things a certain way, and we don't. And that is a big gap. That's a big knowledge gap right there. The other thing I want to say about that is there's a lot of times where I will be doing on-site training at a terminal and I'll be training the operation the way I want to train them. This is the John Davis way. And then a driver or a manager will say, well, this is the way we do it. What do you think about this? And I go, you know what? That's not a bad way of doing it. That accomplishes the goal of what we're trying to do here. So with that knowledge is the managers and the drivers need to always be learning about their training and their skills on what they need to do in their day-to-day operation. All right, so contractors that come to us for safety and training and they're at tier one and tier two. Here's the critical things that is a common thread across those tier one, tier two contractors. Number one, they don't have any written policies or they haven't updated their written policies and they don't have procedures. The things I'm going to talk about in here are all about what those strategies are and what you should have to make sure that you are doing things properly. So having no policies and procedures, got to have that. That's what everything is based on. So if your driver doesn't follow a policy or procedure, what are you going to refer to in a disciplinary action? You're going to refer to that policy. Driver, you must wear your seatbelt at all times in the truck. That's the policy. Driver does not do that, then you tell the driver you didn't follow the policy. So you really got to work on your policies and procedures to cover all of the different behavior things that I'm talking about in this presentation here. Then the other big failure that I see is we have a lot of AOs that are not located in the same location as their contract. They may be in multiple locations, they may live in another state, and they have a BC that is running the operation, and they don't set up accountability for the managers to say, this is what my expectations are, this is what I want you to be doing. Those need to be in writing on what are our goals on veteran passing our KIs? What are our goals on passing our hours of service key indicators? What are our goals to stop door pull incidents? What are our goals to stop trailer disconnects? What are our goals on equipment inspections? Those type of things. Those need to be in writing and they need to be issued to the manager and the manager sign off on those because again, it's very much like the policies with disciplinary action with the drivers. If your manager is not singing out of your hymn book on what your expectations and what you need to do with safety, then you don't have that mechanism in place on what the expectations and what you want that manager to do. Because what would the manager say? The manager would say, well, boss, you never told me that. Well, I assume you would know to do that. You have to put that in writing. So I have my very good contractors, my tier five gold contractors. What they do with their BCs is they have those expectations and those safety plans in writing for their managers, number one. Number two, they have some type of safety incentive program for those managers. Managers, I will give you more money if we perform better at safety. And then number three, they have regular ongoing discussions about what's going on. So a few of those contractors, what they make their BCs do is Every day they review the Vetter and the ELD dashboard. They go to the terminal, they do the stuff there, and then they write to the owner, the AO, to say, boss, this is what I accomplished today. And then that is a running ledger of what we're doing. That's how you steer your safety program, is that knowledge right there, because the drivers are in a silo, your BCs are in a silo, and the owners are in a silo. And you got to connect all those silos with your safety program. Next problem is coaching. So with our system, we have automatic coaching. Drivers don't necessarily like the automatic coaching. However, what is that coaching doing? It is preserving a documented record for when you are sitting in a witness stand in a courtroom, that you have your training and coaching documented. That is the whole reason you want that. Where do my tier one and tier two fail at this? Is where they go, well, I coach my drivers. They have speeding and I told him to stop speeding. That is not the proper method of doing coaching. You've got to be able to document every single discussion you have with your drivers and what you did on that. Not only for the litigation aspect from an accident, but also for unemployment claims. You terminate a driver, they go to the EEOC or the unemployment office, and you don't want to deal with paying that out because you have documentation of everything that you did with the training, the coaching, and disciplinary actions, and all of that is documented. And then training. My tier one and tier two contractors, they have a propensity to use their training as I gave them the qualified training program, and that's enough. That's the basics of training. And I'm going to go through exactly what we need on training. So I'm picking on the tier one and tier twos, but if they'll change the way they do things, then this will start driving the safety tier up. I've had several contractors that have come to us, tier one. We have a conversation with the owner or the AO or the BCs and all that, and they go, John, tell me what to do. You need to do what I'm talking about in this webinar. If you will do this, your safety program will go from tier one, two, three, four, five. It will. It's been proven. Here's another misconception. I get a lot of BCs. I'll go to a contract and I'll meet with the BCs. I'm at the terminal and I'll have them explain what they do day to day on safety. I review the veteran ELD dashboard. We have an old saying, sort of fable saying, that you can either handle safety as an ambulance in the valley or the fence on the cliff. If you take it for the fence on the cliff, you're being proactive. If you're just looking at your Vetter and ELD dashboards, you're the ambulance in the valley. All of your safety problems, door pull, inspections, gate accidents, everything that you are struggling with safety is at the terminal. That is the big difference. So when I go to see a contractor and I talk to the BC and go, how often do you go over the terminal? I don't do that. I've got to review these dashboards. I've got recruiting to do. I've got dispatching to do. I've got this to do. That's what I spend all my time on. If you want to change your safety, you've got to go to the terminal and physically watch your drivers. I'm going to go through that workflow. It's a lot, but if you'll get that workflow in place and you will adopt that workflow, your safety tier will go up and your safety incidents will go down. So proactive, go into the yard, working with the drivers, doing everything, making sure you're in a qualified safety program. You cannot survive in this network without being in a qualified safety program. You can go on MyGroundBiz. We're listed on MyGroundBiz as a qualified training vendor. I'm going to give you some reasons of why you should use us over anybody else. But you've got to secure your contract. Those $75,000 indemnity fines can put you out of business in a heartbeat. So make sure that not only do you have the qualified training, Your drivers are doing their onboarding before the first dispatch. They're doing their monthly training by the 15th, and your managers are doing their training and doing things they need to do on the monthly stuff. All right, that's the basics of setting up the training, the whys, using the qualified training. And now let's talk about the workflow on doing the training the right way. Again, I see so many managers that spend more time at their desk working on dashboards and reviewing vetter events and LDs and logs than actually going to the terminal. I do recognize that we do have some challenges. We have owners that buy contracts that they may not have a BC. Strategy there is identify one of your strong drivers to be a lead driver or a driver trainer. Pay them a little more, but that can help with what I'm talking about in this workflow. So if you're in that situation and you're thinking to yourself, man, I don't have a BC that can do all this stuff, that's an option to think about on putting this system in place. All right, reactive, desk bound, reviewing the dashboards, communicating through screens, assuming that the compliance is being done, and stagnant safety measures. We have a software program that brings in the vetter information and the ELD information, and it makes it super simple for managers to manage this program and to just watch one dashboard to make sure that everything is identified and covered. So instead of spending hours reviewing different vendor dashboards, if you use us, then you're in one dashboard. Then thinking about going to the terminal and thinking about how our network works. So you've got drivers, a lot of our drivers drive overnight. So what happens? They're coming back to the terminal in the morning. Be at the terminal first thing in the morning to greet your drivers, review things. Hey, did you have any problems last night? Check the equipment out, help out. They need to do a post-trip inspection. Get out there with them and help them do a post-trip inspection. It's going to make your drivers stronger on that. Every operation that does this definitely changes everything with their safety program, from making sure that they are checking on the skills and the behaviors of what their drivers are doing. So constantly being out at the terminal, doing this type of stuff will help with making sure those behavioral improvements and get you up to that tier 5. All right, for the managers, 24-hour cycle. I'm going to go into this in a little more detail, but quick look at the dashboard, seeing what's going on with the vetter and the ELD. That should take about 10 minutes. Head to the terminal, work with your drivers, do all that. You want to get in a cadence on as many days of the week that you can make that happen. And again, you may have to incorporate a little bit more with some lead drivers and things like that to help out with the labor and manpower to make this happen. But sitting at your desk is not going to solve the problem. Then weekly for the managers. And I get pushback from BCs on this. I've had BCs that have told me, I'm not a mechanic and I'm not doing this. Weekly vehicle tractor inspections. Check in the tractor binder. Is everything up to date? I can't tell you how many times I go to a terminal, work with an AO and their BCs and their drivers, get in the cab of the truck, open a tractor binder. They have software programs that are tracking the expiration dates, and I open it up and I have an insurance card that expired, an annual inspection that is expired, the tag is expired, things like that that can be problematic. So don't just rely on software to make that happen with you. So check your tractors. Drivers are supposed to do the pre-trip, in-trip, and post-trip inspection, but managers, you've got to look at the DVIRs and see how they're performing on the DVIRs. Then weekly, look at the tractors. Is what I see with the tractor going on with the DVIRs? Is there mud flaps on the tractors? A lot of you guys take the mud flaps off, and then you've got others that leave it on, but the lead trailer tears up the mud flaps and things like that. Little tear in the mud flap can be a roadside violation, but with managers in the cadence of going to the terminal every week and checking out the tractors, checking out the tractor binder, looking at the cleanliness of the inside of the truck. Don't forget to check those F cams. You get animal strikes all the time. This is a big miss by contractors. They don't check, they have a deer that they strike and they don't check the F cam. And then all of a sudden your F cam's not working and you're in breach of contract on that, get an OTC, and you're dealing with that nightmare. Then there's the monthly workflow for the managers is, all right, everything that happened in June, you should be looking at those types of things to see what do we need to work on in July and keeping that cadence going on what we need to work on. A critical failure with contractors is if you think in the line haul space on dock and door pull procedures, the drivers are required to sign a SIG at hire and every year. Think about on the SIG, which is Safety Information Guide about door and dock pull procedures, the way the driver receives that on their phone is all they see is a signature box that comes on their phone. They sign it and it goes away. They don't even get the opportunity to read it. They just sign it and that goes away. So things like dock and door pull procedures, you need to be doing that all the time on training, trailer connections all the time, pre-trip inspections all the time, gate procedures all the time. Don't rely on a document that is given to the drivers once a year to cover you on that because I deal with door and dock pull procedures. It seems like daily. It's all the time. There should never be a dock or a door pull incident if you follow the right procedures. And then with trailer disconnects, a lot of it is because the driver didn't take the connection photos. The trailer disconnects from the dolly and the driver didn't take the connection photos, and I have nothing to fight with Linehaul to say our driver did the right procedures on this. So think about that on your safety and your training on what you should do monthly on improving your operation, because that's all safety is, a little bit of improvement every day. Are we better today than we were yesterday? That's really what you want to focus on. And then on my owners, I have a contractor, the AO, and he's been in some of my training and he's gotten up in front of the manager training where I do that 5 hours and he has announced to the group, and he is absolutely correct on this. Safety starts with the AO, period. AOS is the one that sets the entire safety tone and cadence for your operation. The BCs better be on the same hymn book on that cadence. Don't want them going in two different directions. So AOs, you're to be setting that cadence for the month, working with your BCs. What is our safety plan and strategy going into the new month? What's happened today? Because the BC has sent the AO a short, condensed paragraph of what is going on in the vetter, the ELD, and what they did at the terminal. And all of that is documenting your safety program and this cadence. All right, now let's go through the daily of what I would do as a BC. So I'd get to work in the morning and I would quickly, if you're using us, I would review our safe dashboard, look for any safety and compliance issues. Check that. Should take no more than 10 minutes of seeing what's going on. All right. Then head to the terminal. Get out there, greet my drivers coming back in, checking the tractors, making sure they're doing their post-trip inspection, make sure that everything was good from the night before. Did you have any issues out there? Any issues with Linehaul? Any issues with the ELD? Any issues with the tractor? Any issues with the trailer? Covering all that. And then document that, send it to the AO. Hey, got to the terminal. This is what I found out. This is everything that was going on. And then this is where the safety program goes into hyperdrive, is when the manager, the BC, is at the terminal in their safety vest. I can't tell you how many times I see a BC on my terminals without a safety vest, but make sure you're wearing your safety vest and that you got your steel-toed shoes on and you got all your gloves and everything else. But get out there and work with your drivers. Hey, I know you just did 11 hours, and hey, let me help you do this pre-trip inspection. I'll take the tires, you pull the hood, do, this. That will change everything from your drivers, not only from them knowing you're there and watching them, but the respect that they will have for you to say, hey, I'm going to roll up my sleeves and jump in and do this. This is the other opportunity for you to work with your drivers on skills training. All right, I've got 20 drivers. I've got a month here. I go out to the terminal 5 days a week. And so let me work on a skill with this driver. It could be something on the ELD. One of the crazy things that happens all the time is a driver will call us and go, I don't have any hours. Left myself on duty. I forgot to log out. I need you to change that to off duty. Driver can do that right on the tablet. They don't have to call anybody. They just go to log, go to the duty status, edit, change it to the right duty status from off duty to off duty, and sign their log, start their day, all within 30 seconds. But the managers have got to train them to do that. So you can live your life as a manager, answering those calls all throughout the day and night that I don't have any hours, please fix it, boss. Or you can train your driver to fix it themselves and get it done. Again, my tier 5 guys, their BCs have a spare ELD tablet sitting on their desk. They go out to the terminal, they got the spare tablet with them, and they're showing drivers tips and tricks on the ELD. Another thing that drives me crazy is drivers that say, I'm not good with technology. I know you do online banking. I know you pay your bills online. I know you do a lot of things online. This is not that difficult. You can learn this ELD tablet. It's not hard. But the secret is the BC having a training tablet with them and showing those drivers how to do that. Part of our training solution is we provide managers weekly safety topics to talk to their drivers. So conducting safety discussions when you're out there, and we call them toolbox talks or short safety meeting or something like that. But always be talking about safety. Then in the afternoon, all right, I've been to the terminal, I've got all that done, had my safety vest on, get back over to the office, and then I got to do the work that the boss wants me to do. That could be driver recruiting. That could be setting up dispatch for the night. It could be other business related items that the owner or AO is asking you to do. But get that done in the afternoon. And then as you get towards the end of the afternoon, be thinking about what you're going to do on your second visit to the terminal. And that's getting your drivers out on the road and helping them with their pre-trip inspections, watching those door pull procedures and doing that. I know that a lot of you can't do it every day, and I understand that. You're trying to do this workflow as much as you can. It really helps also to not have a set schedule. Let's say you do a morning visit on Monday and Wednesday, but the following week you do it on Tuesday and Thursday. That keeps the drivers on their toes. They don't know when you're going to be there. So think about all of that. Use that afternoon also if, we have manager training, complete your manager training, get smarter. I've been doing this 37 years. I think I have seen everything. And sure enough, something's going to walk through the door this afternoon that I've never seen before, where I have to call my DOT officer. I have to get another AO on the phone, go, look, I had this happen in Linehaul. What did you do? Oh, I did this. Always be learning. That's what managers should be spending a lot of their time on. I don't know everything. The AO doesn't know everything. Linehaul doesn't know everything. We've got to keep working on being smarter. I play a game when I go to terminal meetings. So anybody that's having me come out to do terminal training, there's two things with the BC that will irritate me in a hurry. Number one, being late to a meeting. If you are late, you're telling your drivers it's okay to be late. Don't be late. On time is not on time. On time is late. Be early to any type of meeting that you have with your drivers on terminal. Second thing that aggravates me is the BC doesn't wear their safety vest or they're not prepared to be on the terminal. And you've got to lead by example because if you show up to the terminal without a safety vest on, you're telling your drivers it's okay not to wear a safety vest. It's just like us with our children. They do what they see. Working on in-cab training on this evening observation. ELD is the most problematic area with all of my contractors. Again, working with the drivers on how to use the ELD procedures. Checking those dock and door pull procedures. I can tell you, when I trained dock and door pull procedures, I'm amazed at how many drivers and managers don't follow the proper procedure. So the proper procedure for door and dock pull is taking a screenshot of the mobile trip app showing the trailers are closed. That's step one. That is the CY of step one. This is the one that I always see missing. The driver is supposed to beat on the side of the trailer, yelling, moving the trailer all the way down the trailer. Drivers don't like to do that. Managers don't like to do that. It's embarrassing. I know it's embarrassing. Why are we doing that? There is a video camera that is facing that rear trailer door in our terminals. That is part of that CYA for you guys, that if you do that part, beating on the trailer and yelling, that camera should pick up a lot of that from the interior. The other critical failure on door pull, do not have your drivers wearing headsets or being on their phone during critical things like trailer connections, door and dock pulls, gates, pre-trip inspections. That is a critical failure to your safety, is allowing a driver to be on their phone and wearing a headset. You can't beat on the side of the trailer wearing your Beats headset, listening to music to hear an audible response from inside the trailer. That's the same problem. It's even more of a problem, I should say, at customer locations, because a lot of customer locations, we don't have these nice nifty cutouts to look at the trailer door and things like that. Finally, there's a critical failure at the trailer door on dock and door pull. The procedure is this: the trailer door must be closed and secure, the dock plate must be down, and the warehouse door must be closed and secure. Not 3/4 of the way down, not open. And I see so many misses on that where the line haul folks leave the door 3/4 of the way down because it's hot. It's summertime. I'm leaving it open. Your policy with your drivers and your managers is if the warehouse door is open, we are not pulling that trailer. You can call the switcher to pull that trailer, or you can call line haul and talk to them about closing that warehouse door, but that trailer's not budging until that warehouse door is down. The problem is when that door is open, it's real easy for a loader to go, oh man, I forgot this last package. They open the trailer door, your driver's already checked the door, and then that's when these situations happen and all that. If you want to be Tier 5 gold, you're going to instruct your drivers in the cutouts in the line haul terminals to stick their cell phone in there and snap a photo. Trailer doors closed, plates down, warehouse door is closed. That's the CYA right there. Then they can safely pull that trailer from the door. So thinking about all of that. On the headset, on pre-trip inspections, you cannot do a proper pre-trip inspection with headsets on or being on the phone. You can't. How are you going to listen for an audible air leak in tires if you got your headset on? Can't do it. Trailer connections, you're putting those together, and the secret to doing trailer connections and pre-trip inspections properly is doing it in the exact same order every single time. So what happens? Driver's in the middle of putting their set together. They've got the dolly in front of the pup trailer. They're getting the lead trailer backed up to the dolly. They're about to hook everything up. Boss calls them. That is a stop and think about where they are in their procedures. Because if it messed up the cadence of the procedure, they're most likely to have a disconnect on that. So the mindset you want to do with training your drivers, if you're doing your pre-trip inspection or you're connecting the trailers and I call you, I would prefer for them to wait 5 minutes after they've done that and then go, hey, I saw that you called. What can I help you with? Sometimes it can be an emergency, I understand, but at that point, they just need to restart the entire process on the way that they are doing those connections and their pre-trip inspection. Here's another critical failure with my managers. I mentioned it a little earlier about managers inspecting trucks. If you got 20 trucks, you're going to try to inspect them. You don't have to inspect all 20 in one day, but you want to get in a cadence in the week of trying to look at your trucks on what's going on, looking for damage that may have happened that the driver may not have told you, checking the mirrors, checking your vetter, checking the gateway, making sure it's working right, looking at the flaps, looking at the emergency equipment, looking underneath the bunk. Is it just trashed under the bunk where the reflectors and the fire extinguisher? Is the fire extinguisher charged? Is it secure? Different things on the tractors. You're building a check and balance system. Drivers doing pre-trip, in-trip, and post-trip inspections. Managers doing weekly inspection. That's the check and balance to make sure that everything is going right. Deliver the safety message for the week and then plan the next week. Here's the other thing with managers. We have manager training, and so the way that we do that training, I'll give you an example. In July, we did brake training for drivers. Drivers are not great at inspecting brakes and handling brake issues. They just aren't. That's the maintenance guy's issue. All right, so we got a basic brake video on how to identify problems with brakes. Then I had manager training on brakes. So there's a 30-page guide on everything a manager should know about brakes. And you're going, John, geez, 30 pages. It's there to be a reference. It's, again, I have to know everything. I don't know everything. I'm telling you that. So the guide is there to strengthen the manager on what they don't know. Remember, that's the core problem. I don't know what I don't know. And then the manager can review the guide, and then I have a video training for the manager that they need to do. And it's basically the way I do my manager training. It's on brakes, but it's more of the trainer type of training so they can work with their drivers throughout the month on brakes. Why did we do brakes in July? Because August 23rd to 29th is the CVSA National Brake Check Week. We have an ISS score of a 64, which means that we are recommended to be pulled over in August 23. And we all better have our brakes set before August 23rd. So that's the whole reason that I put in, we're working on brakes in July. Managers are working on brakes. And then what I want from my managers, AOs, this is for you. Managers should do the manager training the first of the month. I issue the monthly training for the drivers with the manager training. Manager does their training the first of the month. Why? Lead by example. These drivers that wait until the last day of the month and, do their training and all that, you've got to show them that, okay, it's the first of the month, training has been issued, drivers have been issued their training automatically in our system. Managers, you need to get your training done so you know what we need to work on this month. That's the whole way that I build this monthly training package, is making sure the drivers got a subject, the managers have the training and reinforcement on that subject, and we as contractors get stronger and better every day. The other thing that's included is skills training for the manager. So we had to have skills to put in there about, okay, John, great, I this 30-page guide and I got this training video, but what am I working on at the terminal on brakes? Here's your checklist. That's the skills training that's there. And then they have their 4 talking points to reinforce the training on brakes: week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. This next month for August is all about not parking in the emergency lane. We keep having fatality accidents in the emergency lane. Drivers are going to receive a video on do not park in the emergency lane unless it is an actual emergency. I'm getting drivers involved in fatality accidents. injury act. They're getting tickets on the side of the road for, test room break on the side of the road, taking their 30-minute break on the side of the road. All of this stuff is going on every day. And then I got a manager training. Why is this important? What are you going to do as a manager to reinforce what we need to do to keep them out of the emergency lane on the highway? We have challenges in our network. We haul 2 trailers. Most of you do. You park a lot of our rigs in a rest area or a truck stop. So you as a manager, because you're in your jurisdiction, where are you going to suggest to your drivers to take their 30-minute break or to, have to stop? Where are you going to stop? Because the emergency lane is a no-go. You've got to keep your drivers out of there. We have too many people that are dying in the emergency lane, and that's got to stop. Okay, back to AOs. 20th of the month, somewhere around the middle of the month. It varies month to month from Linehaul. They say the 15th. I've seen it as late as the 18th or the 19th. But on the 20th of the month, I want you to put in your calendar app right now to say, on the 20th of the month, I am going to contact Linehaul for my safety results summary report. You can, if you use like Gmail, Outlook, or something like that, you can build a email that just schedule it every month on the 20th. Just build it once, schedule it for the 20th to go to your line haul manager to get your safety result summary report. That is your report card on your safety program. Okay. AOC SRS. Share the SRS, the safety results summary report, with your managers. Managers, this is what happened last month. This is what's dropping off this month. This is what we need to be working on. That 20th to the end of the month, 21st to the end of the month, is where you're doing your planning on what you're going to be working on in the next month. Again, safety starts with the AO. AO sets the cadence down to the managers. AO meets with BCs. Hey guys, this is dropping off this month. We a couple more dropping off in September. We need to focus on making sure we don't have another door pull incident, and that's what our focus should be. That's the strategic planning on making the difference to get you to that tier 5 gold status. AOs, mentor your managers the tools. We're the only training provider that I know that provides extensive manager training. So if you're not in our training program, you better be, because of all of the manager training that we have. So AOs, set the expectations with your BCs and what you expect out of them. Set the required training that you want to do. So I just told you that we set break for the drivers, then we had break training for the managers, and there's 100 plus other training for managers in our system. AO, figure out what's important to you and assign it to your BC. Go, hey, I'd really like you to complete training in addition to the monthly training, to you. And then ensure that they're doing their terminal visits and that they are sending you reports to you what's going on with your operation. That's the accountability. That's what's holding everybody accountable to what's going on. We spend so much time focused on the drivers need to do this, they need to do this better. Everything is with our safety and management program. It's the managers that make the difference. All of my tier 5 gold accounts, it's the managers that are driving it, not the drivers on that. So AOs, this is tough. And BCs, I know there's some on the call. If you have a BC that is not singing out of your hymn book and is not performing, you have to replace them. It's a hard truth. I've had to have that discussion with accounts, and it's a tough place to be. Could be doing very well with line haul or recruiting, but if you fail at safety, you're not going to be in business. I want you to think about that as your investment into this business, that if you don't survive safety, you're going to lose everything, regardless of that. So think about that. And then the last thing is, AO, it's your job to provide the resources and the training, the mentoring, everything to your BCs. You should be thinking every day, what can I provide my BC to make them better? What do I need to learn as a AO to be better? What do I need to do to, course of our contract? We're at tier one, tier two, and things like that. Sometimes, and this happened with a couple of AOs where I thought I had it going well. It all went down, tier four. Now I'm a tier two. It's a manager problem. It's always a manager problem when that happens, drivers, and we blame that, doing what they're supposed to do. It's a manager problem. So if you're in that boat, I want you to do some self retrospect. Go, what do I need to do to change this course? All right, daily terminal presence. You will not change your safety program if you do not go to the terminal, period. It will not happen. You'll be tier one, you'll be out of this network quicker than I can even tell you. Weekly data and communication. Communication's key from the BCs up to the AO. Looking at your policies and procedures. I told you need to have a good set of policies and procedures, but that is a living, breathing document. You just don't do a driver handbook and go, woo, I got done every month. What do we need to change? And these policies can be terminal specific. They could be bump specific. Could be, to optimize this route to say, okay, driver, if all gets you out the door at 8 o'clock, you're going to drive for 4 hours. You're going to stop at this rest area, which is a good, safe parking, and you're going to take your 30-minute break at the 4-hour mark. You're going to leave from there. You're going to go to the terminal. You're going to go in the yard move. You're going to drop. You're going to pick up your new trailers. You're going to come back to that same area in the middle of the trip here, and then back to the terminal. You could be playing the fuel game. Oh, we do our own IFTA, and we want our drivers to fuel over in Pennsylvania because the IFTA tax is more favorable to us there. Oh, we're at a quarter of a tank of fuel in the tractor. Driver, you are to go into Pennsylvania from Ohio and fuel at this station. That's what I'm talking about on thinking about your operation and to optimize what you need to do to get the best bang for the buck. Here's the aha moment. We're all line haul contractors. We all run under the same customer insurance costs, roughly, same maintenance costs, same fuel costs, same tire costs, and all that. He or she that manages those costs better is the winner at the end of the day. They're the ones that are really succeeding this business when they are looking at everything. It always surprises me on the number of operations that don't look at fuel economy. You run a report right out of Motiv that says, what is your fuel on? Oh, I've got a 2022 Freightliner that's doing 7 miles to the gallon. I've got a 2023 T60 and it's getting 5 miles to the gallon. Well, guess what? I need to figure out how to get that Volvo out of my system. Now, picking on Volvo is just an example. So, but type of things can really change what's going on with your operation. All right, we talked about the workflow, talked about all the needs for doing this training and having it be qualified training and all that. I've gone off the rails on a lot of this stuff. But now let's get into, this classic saying. And I was meeting with a contractor, the AO, their upper management, and all of their BCs were on a call this week. And, BCs asked a great question. I need to be focused on training my drivers, because if you think about it, we've got the green regulation book that's about that thick, and know all the regulations. Then they need to know all the line haul procedures. They need to know how to know everything there is about a tractor. They need to know everything about a trailer. They need to know everything about dispatching and all that. It's really only 8 things that they need to know. And if you work on these 8 pillars that I'm talking about, you'll get about 95% of your safety. The other 5% is the crazy four-wheelers on the highway. I can't help you on that. Those people are crazy. So a lot of my contractors don't focus on what they need to focus on. So they'll, they're not in our ecosystem, some safety vendor that uses the same training every month, every year. And okay, check, follow the requirements on this, but it's really not generic training that is not focused on what my problems are. Every one of you that's listening today has unique circumstances that only apply to you. They all run the same. They don't. Everybody has different issues at terminals and different issues with drivers, different issues with managers, different issues with trucks and all that. So the first thing that I always want my contractors to change when it comes to their training program, the qualified training program is required to have video training for onboarding. Having your drivers do the video training is the lowest common denominator. That's not going to get what you need to do. You have to get at the terminal and do an onboarding with your drivers. And it's going to look something like this, where the manager gets out there and do this road test, but again, it's a great time to go over this, do your pre-trip inspection. Let's pre-trip this truck. Talk to them about the procedures of inspecting trailers. Remember, if your drivers are on the mobile trip app, the trailer inspections are supposed to be in the mobile trip app. It's owned and maintained by Linehaul. Those inspections go in there. Then showing them how to do the trailer connections, showing them how to take the pictures of the trailer connections, teaching them about the vetter camera, the ELD, the tractor binder, and things like that. I have a checklist for that. If anybody on here would like to have that checklist, just send us an email and I'll be happy to send you the checklist. But what I'm trying to get across is the video training of onboarding is part one. At the terminal, onboarding is part two. That's the thing. So let's go through some of these behaviors here. This is what I just covered on what I just talked about on the onboarding and making sure that you go through reviewing the tractor binder, door and dock pull procedures, gate procedures, accident procedures, equipment, ELD, trailer connections, vetter management, and completing a mock DOT stop. Since I just mentioned that, that's the other thing that will completely change your safety outcomes is doing a mock DOT stop during the onboarding process. So here's how it works. You put the driver in the driver's seat and have them put their seatbelt on and you close the door. And what's the first question that the DOT officer asks the driver every single time? Where are you coming from and where are you going? You just say that sentence to prepare them on what they should expect. They just make something up. I'm going from Olive Branch, Atlanta, Georgia. All right. Show me how to unmount the ELD from the mount. If your driver doesn't know how to do that, they're going to get a roadside violation for that. Some of my contractors are locking the ELD into the mount. So if you're doing that, make sure that you have a procedure on how to unlock it and hand the ELD to the officer standing on the ground. If you don't, you're going to get a violation. Show me the tractor binder. Show me the cab card, the registration. Show me the annual inspection. Show me the insurance card. What's the expiration date? Why are you asking the expiration dates on those documents? So training your drivers to look at those documents. Because I can tell you, they're not looking at that. Show me the Motive ELD manual. Show me DOT transfer instructions. If it's in the manual, you need to separate that out in a laminated by itself DOT instructions. Show me the ELD malfunction instructions. Those are supposed to be in writing. If you don't have those in writing, you're getting a roadside violation on that. So make sure you have the ELD malfunction instructions in writing. It's very simple. The instruction is this: driver, if you have an ELD malfunction, you are to call the manager within 24 hours to let us know this and move to paper logs. That's the instruction, plain and simple. And then my other favorite game with going to terminals, show me a blank logbook. It better be in the tractor binder, because what happens, my experience is when I go to the terminal, I play this game with the AO. I say, get up in that tractor, and the AO's in the driver's seat, and I say, show me a blank logbook. Well, it's supposed to be around here somewhere. So they look in the tractor binder, it's not there. They look in the overhead, it's not there. They look to the side, it's not there. They look in the glove box, it's not there. And then the DOT officer says this sentence. It says, don't worry about it. I'll be right back. Let me translate that sentence for you. I am writing you a ticket. That's what that means. As soon as the officer says, don't worry about it, I'll be right back, you're getting a ticket, period. So you're in this mock DOT inspection, you're training your drivers on the how to survive the inspection with a cadence of like this of show me the tractor binder. Boom, there it is. Show me the registration. Boom, there it is. Show me the manual. There. And finally, what you want to do is show me how to transfer the logs. So where this happens to be a failure with everybody is we ask the drivers, our managers ask the drivers, do you know how to transfer the logs? Yes, boss. Of course I do. No, they don't. I can promise you they don't. And Motive does not make it easy. If you go to the inspection in the Motive app, there's three options to transfer the logs. Option one is the one that Motive serves to the driver first, and that shows the officer the logs and the DVIRs for the last 8 days, but they remain on the tablet. So the officer looks at that and they go to the driver. All right, now I need you to transfer them to me. The driver's looking at the officer down on the ground going, dude, I just handed you the tablet. You're looking at them. No, don't worry about it. I'll be right back. I'm writing you a ticket. That's what you need to practice on is on DOT transfer from the log. So the way it works in Motive is the first one stays on the tablet. The officer can look at it. They may let it go. They don't want them transferred. But then options 2 and 3, one is by web code and one is by email address. So you as a manager, you've got to train your drivers what a web code is versus an email address. So option 2 is the web code. They have to back out of option number 1, go to option number 2, go to the top of the page, put the code in, understanding that the code is a series of letters and numbers, put that in and hit submit output file. Transfers to the officer. The officer goes, yeah, that didn't when he just sent it to me by email. Officer, don't realize it, the officer, by the way. Got to back out of number 2. Now you got to go into number 3, and then you got to go to the top. Officer, what is your email address? It's john.davis at northcarolina.dot.gov. Put that email address in. Submit output file. Now, here's a critical thing about all that. The output file has a little trick in there that you have to put in the dates of what to send the officer. So you have to train your drivers to ask that question. What dates would you like to see, officer? I'd like to see the last 8 days. Okay, today is and I need to go back 8 days to the 22nd and put that in the calendar, put the code in or the email address, and then hit submit. Your driver handing the tablet to the officer says, I don't know how to do this, and you need to do it. And that's going to end up in a violation. It's happening every day. But you see how Motive created it and how convoluted that is. But if you don't practice that skill with your drivers, you're going to fail and you're going to get roadside violations. And by the way, a roadside violation for an hours of service situation like that is 34 points to your safety results summary report. It's 34 points that you don't need to have. So you got to practice that during onboarding, not after. All right. Thinking of the 8 pillars, we got in-cab safety, we got terminal safety, LD use, equipment inspections, roadside inspections, accident offensive driving, and human resource procedures. We're the only qualified safety vendor that has human resource training that I know for managers and drivers in our system. You do not, a lot of don't understand the extreme liability you have under human resource situations with toxic work environments, workplace conflict, sexual harassment, discrimination, all of that stuff we have in our training platform for your managers because there are huge issues in there. We also have all the policy and procedures. All right, we're in our onboarding. I want to make sure that we're at the terminal and we're covering in-cab safety. First thing I talk to the driver about is I have a camera in there. That camera is there to protect you. I have nothing else to protect you in this cab other than that camera. If you cover, tamper, mess with that camera, put a smear on it, put a piece of tape on it, put your hat over it, put a bandana on it, I want you to be perfectly clear on this point. I am going to terminate you immediately. Why? If that camera's not working at the time of an accident, you're looking at $75,000 check. That's how serious it is. If you don't cover that and set that expectation with the tone that I just said and cover it with your drivers, that's going to be a problem on there. So all that. Cell phones. Big miss with contractors is this. I see a lot of distracted driving events in the veterans where the driver has a cup holder, cell holder from WeatherTech, and the cell phone is down in the cup holder and they're looking down at their phone like this, causing this distracted driving events. You want to mount the phone in the exact same spot in every single truck. So number one, supply the cell phone holder. Number two, mount it on the dash in the exact same spot. Train your drivers that it's a one-touch rule. You can push the button to answer it and you can push the button to hang it up. Other than that, you're not allowed to do anything with that phone. Can't text, can't look at email, can't pick it up out of the holder. You can't do anything. Touch it. Answer, touch, hang up. Those are the only two things they're allowed to do. Then talking about cleanliness of truck, I can't tell you how many times I get in a truck at a contractor's in a terminal, and I feel like I need a tetanus shot when I get out of that truck. There's dust all over the place. There's trash all over the place. I have a DOT officer on staff, and he shared this with me. The first thing a DOT officer looks at or experiences is when the door opens on a roadside, that officer knows how the roadside inspection is going to go from the smell out of your truck. So if it's full of garbage and food and a bunch of in it and all that, that changes the mindset of that officer going, oh, goody, we're gonna with this stop. Keep your trucks clean. It's also safer, if you're in a crash and they've got their cooler, their 64 thermos, water in it and ice and all this stuff for cab. Well, if there's an accident, all of those become missiles and injure your driver. Seatbelt use, covering that. They must wear a seatbelt on terminal property and on the road at all times. I know it's a pain in the butt when we are putting doubles together to wear a seatbelt. Have to wear a seatbelt, always. Even backing under the trailers. It used to be that we could get away with not wearing the seatbelt backing under the trailer. It is required. You will get a veteran event on seatbelts. You fail your KIs, it's going to be points against your results summary, and you got to cover it during the onboarding process. Make sure that we are crystal clear on this. The other thing about seatbelts is if the seatbelt's worn, replace it. Other issue is all humans are not the same size. If you have a driver that needs a extension, the fuzzy thing on the seatbelt, whatever job is the AO and the BC to accommodate that driver to make sure that they wear that seatbelt. So it's up to you to make sure that you cover that. And, I have that will get you on a seatbelt violation. Your driver's wearing the seatbelt, but it's hanging on the upper shoulder and not over the shoulder. Don't keep fighting that fight. Fix the seatbelt. There's some issues with a lot of the seatbelts with silicone WD-40 and spray a seatbelt so it will retract better back up in there. I mean, that's a fix on that. So think about when you're looking at your seatbelts. Again, what did I talk about earlier? Your managers going out to the terminals every week, looking at the tractors, getting inside there, checking the seatbelt. Oh, seatbelt's really nasty. I need to clean it up. Oh, I need some silicone spray on it. I need to make sure that we got that covered. All right, we got pillar one done. Pillar two, terminal safety. I can't tell you how many accidents I handle at the gate. It's just mind-boggling to me at the gate. There's a problem that causes this. Number one is that there's a human at the gate, a gate guard, and a lot of times it's at our customer locations at a regional distribution center or something like that. Think about what the humans are doing. The our human is providing information to the guard about the load. Hey, I have an appointment time, supposed to be here at 9 a.m. Here's my communication, my paperwork, and are talking to the guard about where they need to go or whatever. And what does the guard, the second human, do? Hands back the phone, hands back the paperwork, and says, "You're good to go." Our human number one, that doesn't look at the gate and pulls forward and hits the gate. Now you got a preventable accident on your safety results summary report because of the human interaction at the gate. So you've got to train your drivers about that interaction and where the pitfall is. So guard hands the phone or the paperwork back to the driver. Driver pauses. I have eyeballs on the gate. It's up. It's stationary. It's not moving. I'm good to go. I can pull forward. Sometimes the gate comes back down on the tractor and trailer. I'm not worried about those. That's a guess not. It's when the driver runs into the gate. Other problem with the gates is at a lot of our terminals, especially our line haul terminals, there is a stop sign 20 feet after the gate. So if you stop at the stop sign, the gate comes down on the trailer, and then that can be problematic. Then if you run the stop sign, you're getting a veteran event, or you can get in trouble with line haul. So those are type of things in your network that you need to talk to Linehaul about to make sure that they understand that, hey, you're causing problems, you're causing gate issues and things like that, just because there's a stop sign out of that. Last thing about gates is a lot of our terminals have jersey walls as a chute leading up to the gate. And what happens, I can't tell you how many times that happens. It's happened a lot. Driver gets into the chute, gets up to the gate, and line haul is closed. It's on a Sunday, and they're trying to call something. The gate's not working. They try to call line haul and can't get anybody. So what does the driver do? They try to back up two trailers out of that chute. They hit the jersey wall. They damage the trailers. Preventable accident. That is what I officially call the red zone. Driver, do not move. Call the BC. It's another brain to help the driver figure it out. Whether it's the BC can call somebody at line haul to get the gate open or something like that, but it is an all stop. Do not back up in the chute. But you have to train that at the terminal. I can put it in video training all day long. It's not going to have the same effect of the BC being in the chute saying, all right, you're here, the gate won't open. What is the procedure, driver? I'm to call you. That is absolutely right. Do not back this truck and trailers up. Lock and door pull procedures. I covered those earlier about the biggest thing is drivers are embarrassed on beating on the side of the truck and they don't follow the right procedure. You've got to practice that during the onboarding process of driver. This is the process, the protocol. You are to follow this process and do not deviate. If you get into a situation, and I'll give you an example, I had a door pull, a pretty bad door pull incident at a customer location where the driver could not see if the trailer door was closed. It's 7:30 at night. The driver is on the door trying to get, nobody comes to the door. He's trying to get verbal verification. It's okay to pull the trigger. Again, at 7:30 at night. He assumes that the business is closed, hooks up to the trailer, and he pulls it. And there's somebody in the back of the trailer actively loading it. Also, the ramp with the trailer, and it fell off of that. So making sure that you cover, again, that red zone. So the driver gets in that situation at that customer location. They can't get human confirmation about what is the procedure. Call the BC, get another brain involved into that decision-making process. And what needed to happen on that is the driver needed to walk from that spot. He says, I tried. I beat on the door for 20 minutes. They wouldn't come to the door, whatever. Go to them, talk to them. Hey, it's your customer. You need to talk to the customer and say, we got to do one of two things. And this is what actually happened in this case. Linehaul called the customer and said, if you're not going to have somebody available, then you need to tag the trailer when it's ready to pull. So the customer had to change their procedures to actually make it so we could pull the trailer because they were not happy if we didn't pull the trailer. Speed limit. Watching, again, being at the terminal, watching your drivers run through the terminal. Speed limit on every terminal lot is 10 miles an hour. There are a couple I've been on that says 15 miles an hour, but it's 10 miles an hour. The switchers do not follow that speed limit. They just don't. But us as line haul, we have to follow that. Another thing that's gotten my drivers in trouble from a non-preventable accident where a switcher hits us and turns into an accident is there are lines on the pavement. If you think about it at an airport, they paint lines on the area where the is parked for the baggage handlers to drive in that little lane to be safe from getting hit. We have those same lines at the terminal locations where it's called a travel lane. So where I had a switcher hit our driver, non-preventable, right? It became an accident because the driver was not in the travel lane and the switcher still hit him. This was not, but that's what happened. So, but you've got trained that procedure at the terminal. Going through fueling procedures, not only on the fueling and the safety on that, but I had on site doing driver training. It was 6 o'clock in the morning. The driver that, I needed two trailers. The truck and two just left the fuel island. Brings it over. The AO is talking to me and says, "Hey, I got a good truck and two trailers." And I'm standing on the driver's side of the truck with the drivers and the AO and the BCs. And I just stopped and I said, "What's wrong?" The def cap was off and hanging. That's the type of things you got to work with on your drivers. Okay, you're at the fuel aisle. Do you have the fuel cap on? Is the def on? Here's the procedures and working on those procedures. Pillar number 2 done. ELD. I've already said a lot of this, but if you think about the ELD as this complex computer, but I only got to get the drivers to do things. So my tier 5 BCs and AOs that are listening to this today, they have a spare ELD tablet that they're going to use for training. They are going to show their drivers how to unmount the ELD from the mount. If you have keys or locks on those things, where are those keys? And teaching the drivers that procedure. Form and manner. Shipments. FedEx parcels, the word empty, or the word bobtail. Only 3 things allowed in the shipment. I don't want to see FX parcels. I don't want to see Fed with a capital X parcels. I don't want to see FedEx. I don't want to see FX. I don't want to see. It's FedEx parcels, one word in shipments. If not, it's empty or bobtail. You cannot use initials anymore. The initials of MT or BT will get you a roadside violation. We're getting them quite frequently right now. So if you see that, don't do it. I saw some logs yesterday where we're putting the trailer numbers in the shipments. No, don't do that. Trailer numbers go into the assets under the form. It is the lead trailer, the dolly, and the pup trailer. Well, gee, John, the dolly is not a trailer. Yes, it is an inspected unit on the side of the road. You are going to put lead trailer, dolly number with a D delta in front of it, and pup trailer in on your assets in the EA. Super simple. That's what you're going to train them on that. Certifying logs. Drivers, big miss on this. Number 1, you got the drivers that don't do it. Number 2, you need to train your drivers that the log is a discoverable piece of information in litigation. First thing they're going to go after is the log and the DVIR on this. They'll get the vetter footage, they'll get everything on that. But certifying logs, the procedure is this. Driver must go to log and review their log because why? They are certifying it's true and accurate. That's where they'll catch, oh man, I left myself on duty. Oh, real quick, that night, go down to the on duty line, click edit, off duty. There, log is true and accurate. Sign log. I always tell the drivers, because I have a lot of drivers that do not log out of the ELD. And what happens a lot of times is the manager jumps into the truck during the middle of the day, moves the truck around the lot, or takes it to the shop or a wash or whatever, and you create all these UDEs. The process should be review log, make sure you're off duty, make sure that you certify your log, and then log out of the ELD. Unidentified driving events. I just told you one situation that happens. First thing I want to tell you, if you are making your drivers use their cell phone for the ELD, especially the motive ELD, you are causing way more work for your operation and putting yourself at risk in having your contract have an issue because of unidentified driving events. So, tablets in the truck. That's part one. Part two is making sure that you assign those UDEs, and part three is make sure that you cover the procedure. Having a UDE in your ELD dashboard is not a roadside violation. The act from the driver not accepting or rejecting the UDE is the violation. So what happens? You say, oh, that's John Davis driving. You assign that UDE and send it to John Davis, and then all of a sudden, um, he rejects it, comes right back to your dashboard, and you're in a washing machine at that point. So you've got to train your drivers. It's okay to push back if they disagree. I don't mind that. But the procedure is not just reject it, it's reject it. Hey, boss, I'm calling you to say I rejected that because that wasn't me. I think that was you or the mechanic or somebody. Can you reassign it to them? Perfect. Thank you. It's done. Training them on personal conveyance. You are allowed to use personal conveyance in the network if it's legal use. The big misses of personal conveyance is driver's annotations. Motive has drop-down boxes, and here's where I see all the illegal uses of personal conveyance in the log. The driver uses a drop-down that says drop and hook. They use a drop-down that says fueling. Those are all under the direction of the motor carrier, and that would be an automatic falsification of log on the side of the road. That is a lot of points against you and Linehaul. So when you're looking at personal conveyance, so part of the manager's job is to look at personal conveyance. I do it a week. First thing you want to do is you're going to be on Linehaul's radar if it's over 120-minute move. So there are legal uses of driving over 120 minutes. So, okay, it's a legal use of being over 120 minutes. Then I look over to the right. What is the annotation? It cannot be anything under the direction of the motor carrier, anything that sounds like business. The annotation should be like PC dash casino, PC dash Walmart, PC dash anniversary dinner. So that's the first thing with PC. The other thing with PC is it's a closed loop system. If you start, and I'll give an example. If you start from the driver's home in PC to the terminal, that's a legal use of PC. It would be PC dash reporting for they get to the terminal, they do the pre-trip inspection, they hook up the trailers, they go run and all that. They get back to the terminal, they drop the trailers, do all that, they do the post-trip inspection, and then here's where the closed loop is. PC dash returning home. See how that's a closed loop system? The driver used it to get to work, and the driver used it to come home from work to home. So that's a legal use on that. Adverse conditions. Adverse conditions does not give your driver 2 extra hours of driving. That is a myth. That's false. The 16-hour rule cannot be used in this network. It is an interstate DOT number, and the 16-hour rule cannot be used in this network. So you have adverse conditions, and adverse conditions does not give your drivers 2 hours of automatic driving time. It is one of two things. Up to 2 hours of driving and on-duty time if one of two things happens. They get to the nearest safe parking spot, or they get to the terminal. So let's say you're coming out of Olive Branch and you're coming down that back interstate, come in North Birmingham, and you're out of hours, there's an accident, because the other thing, it has to meet the definition of adverse conditions. You run into an accident and you put in for adverse conditions and there's an accident. Put in the accident and the mile marker where it happened, which the ELD is capturing on that. And let's say they're going into the Birmingham terminal and it's 40 minutes to the Birmingham terminal. They can go to the Birmingham terminal within those 2 hours. That's allowed. But let's say you have team drivers that are out on the road and they're going from 299 in Savannah out to Rialto, and they get into an accident and they get into an adverse, not they get an accident, but they encounter an accident. They use adverse conditions. They can only use adverse conditions to the nearest, closest, safe parking spot, not an additional 2 hours. So understand that. And then work with your drivers on log annotations. That's where all of our roadside violations are happening. We don't have a lot of hours of service issues. We just have very poor log annotations. As my DOT officer trained me, he goes, John, the secret is annotating the logs correctly so it tells the story. So the officer is not guessing where your driver's been and where they're going to. If the annotations are correct, then you're going to be okay. That was pillar number 3. Pillar number 4, work on the DVIR inspections. Again, the secret to equipment inspection is following the same procedure every single time. In-trip inspections. I teach a called driving invisible. Driving invisible is keeping the hoses off the catwalk between the tractor and the lead trailer, making sure all the lights around the trailer and the tractor are working, making sure the tires are good, and making sure the mud flaps are good. That's what the in-trip inspection should be. I stop at a rest area to use the restroom. I'm going to do a quick in-trip inspection, turn the pre-trip light on, go walk around the trailers. Yep, all the lights are working. Listening, I have my headset off, I'm listening to the tires, all of that's good. Mud flaps are good, cables are off the catwalk, good to roll. Post-trip inspection, you're teaching your drivers to set up issues for the next day. Hey, boss, is pulling a little to the left. Can you have somebody look at that while I'm on my 10-hour break? Hey, boss, the ELD flaked out last night. I think the gateway got disconnected somehow, or the internet from the tablet to the gateway is not working. That gives you that time to work on that. Pillar number 4. Pillar number 5, roadside inspections. I've already talked about this, is training on the DOT mock inspection. Train your drivers on what to expect during a roadside. Having that organized tractor binder, having that black binder clip on that binder with the CDL license and the med card under that binder, handing that binder out with a table of contents, with all the documents up to date. The difference is the officer sees that on the side of the road, looks at the binder and goes, you're good to go. It's over. But as soon as your driver starts having an attitude, why'd you pull me over? I can't find this, whatever, it's going to worry about it. I'll be right back. And they're going to write you a ticket. 6, accident procedures. This is a big one that causes so many heartache in this. First, I want you to do is your written policy that's going to be on the front of your binder is drivers are to report all accidents to either the BC or the AO. The AO or the BC are the ones that report to Linehaul. I get in so many situations where the driver thinks they had an accident, they call Linehaul, and it turns into a big problem. So rule number 1, driver, and this is during the onboarding process, is don't just tell them that, driver, I just told you the procedure on reporting an accident. What do you do? Have them tell you. And then have that on the front of your binder. It says, number 1, call the BC or the AO, whichever your contact is, and then have an accident packet in the truck. Make sure that you have all that covered and that you've got, what to do, taking photographs, what to say or not say. I mean, it's obvious, but anyway, we don't admit liability. I don't know the of an accident. You don't know the liability of an accident. Linehaul doesn't know the liability of an accident. The driver doesn't know. The manager, the other party. The only people that can determine liability in an accident is 12 people in a jury box. That is who ultimately determines liability from listening to the facts of the case. So I can have an opinion, you can have an opinion, Linehaul can have an opinion, all these different opinions, but at the end of the day, it's a jury that determines who is at fault for an accident. Until then, it's just our best guess on the facts from the case. On accidents, the most critical thing is getting the vetter footage ASAP. A lot of our vetter cameras, the camera, has that. First thing you want to do. I will tell you with the motive cameras, if you switch to motive cameras, they do not have an SD card. And if you can't get the footage from the dashboard, you've got to pull the camera out, hook up a USB cable to a computer, and it holds 1 or 2 thousand of video in there. Just dump the entire camera onto your computer so you can get that footage. So if you get into a situation for some reason that it did not transmit to the dashboard, you get that camera out of that truck at least by the next morning if it's at night, and download that camera and get it done. If it is a serious accident, injury, your number one, line haul is going to put your tractor in legal jail, meaning a hold, and you shouldn't take that count. Then it becomes spoliation of evidence and things like that. So, sort of lead to deal with what's going on with the equipment and that. Um, Lastly, make sure you're going to cooperate. Cooperate if you're using it. Cooperate with Gallagher Bassett. Third party claims it for. Make sure they cooperate with them. Make sure that you cooperate, and dang sure make sure they're cooperating with you as a manager. Number 7, defensive driving. Again, a lot of this is on the KI stuff: following distance, distracted driving, speeding, obstructed camera, seatbelt use. We do a lot of night driving, fatigue driving, inclement weather. You guys, Northern Hemisphere, you got a lot of issues with ice and black ice, stuff like that. You're in that area, train on that, what to do on that, telling them how to do that. Get in the truck with them on those icy nights. Another one I see on that my operations get in trouble, Linehaul's telling us to run. Your contract states that you have the ability to not take a run if it's unsafe. Refer to the contract. Read your contract. And if you get in that situation where it's black ice all over the windshield and all that, you got to push back on Linehaul and say it's not safe to run tonight. We're shutting down. And our number one accident is lane changes emerging. Sure, you cover that. And then go through things. Real quick on speeding, 5 miles an hour is the maximum speed limit in this network. If your driver is over 65, I don't care if they're coming downhill, I don't care if there's a tailwind, I don't care if it's out of gear, I don't care any of that. If that tractor is going more than 65 miles an hour, you are looking at losing your investment and losing your contract, especially if there's an accident involved on that. Driver and managers need to be aware there's GPS tracking on the trailers. Linehaul can pull a report on their trailers at any time and go, oh, this contractor was doing 80 miles an hour, going downhill in West Virginia. It is not allowed. Anything. So if you're reviewing your veteran and you see anything above 65, and I know some of you have 68 on the cruise control, and that's acceptable. But for me, if there's a speed over 70 miles an hour in my operation, I'm thinking about, oh my God, I'm going to lose my contract over this. That's a serious conversation. That is serious curative training. That is serious write-up. That is serious accountability to my BC to say, that better not happen again in our operation. No speeding over 65. Pillar number 7. Number 8, it's the last one. This is the big one we all miss. It's the human resource stuff, the toxic workplace, the sexual harassment, the workers' compensation procedures, workplace conflict, workplace violence. I just had 2 get in a shootout last week at a terminal. They get in fights all the time. You've got to cover with your drivers to say, if you get into a situation in a conflict or something like this, you're going to be permanently disqualified from this realm here in Linehaul, and you're never going to come back. But then you're facing a massive exposure on your employment practices liability insurance and your workers' compensation insurance, that if you're not covering these with your drivers and managers, you're exposing your rate. I also have reasonable suspicion training. The FMCSA regulations, all managers that operate in law must have reasonable suspicion training. If you do not have that, you are in breach of contract, because in your contract it says you are following the FMCSA regulations. And if you need to get that training, you need to contact us, because that's a big miss on that. And there's huge liability if you send a driver for a random drug test without your manager being trained to handle that. Pre-trip yard, equipment inspections, terminal safety, active transit, ELD use, roadside inspections, and cab safety, defensive driving, accident procedures, HR. you got it. All of this is dictating how your safety program is going to go. Focus on those 8 pillars. If you get those 8 pillars down, I'm telling you, you'll get 95 to 99% of your safety problems fixed. All right, real quick. I realize a lot of you didn't know this. We are an approved qualified training vendor with FedEx. We're on My Ground Biz. We are the only ones that I know that have the driver and manager training that I've explained in this system. That's why you want to use us. So make sure you got that. That manager training is key. We always are thinking it's driver's fault. We're always thinking it's a driver problem. It's a manager problem. I'm telling you that. That is the issue that is going on with your operation. It is a manager problem. Managers, my BCs are on. Again, I'm not picking on you. I want you to really think about what I talked about today and go, yeah, I'm not doing that. I haven't been doing that. If you'll do the things that I talked about today, it will change how you operate. A lot of my BCs aspire to be AOs. They get their own contract one day. AOs are getting to the point of, I want to get out of this business and I want to sign runs and all that. Your BC is a perfect person to do that on that. Mentor, get them in there and get them the right path with our training, our system, our procedures, and it's going to change how everything operates. Making sure on the driver curriculum, the onboarding monthly and curative training, we have the safety training, the human resource training. We have a massive library of curative training. And here's how I operate curative training. I will get either a line haul manager or an AO or BC. They'll call me and say, yeah, I need curative training for unforeseen thing that happened. Roger that. Let me drop everything. Let me create that training real quick. I'll issue it to the driver and get them on the training done, get a training letter done or a letter of assurance done, and then boom, out the door. Why? Because I want your cash register moving again. I don't want your driver down. So massive library of curative. I think we got just about everything I can think of, but again, something new always comes up. Everything. The comprehensive manager training, the manager monthly training, the reasonable suspicion training, the monthly skills training, the talking points, the policies and procedures, the comprehensive HR training, and all that. Everything you need. We're the toolbox to make everything I talked about today happen for your operation. Driver action, making sure that you do everything there. Is you've got to build that manager accountability and communication and all that. That is going to make sure you've got this dialed in. And make sure they get that reasonable suspicion training done. I feel like we're selling that to massive liability because we don't have that reasonable suspicion. And I found out from another contractor on reasonable suspicion in certain states, and certain work comp, you can get credits, tax credits and premium credits by your managers completing the reasonable suspicion training. And there's even additional credits on the HR training. So having the managers, I got 18 modules of manager training on HR, but getting that done, remember what I said a while ago is we all operate under the same rules and the same costs. If you can get a few $100,000 shaved off your work comp because we had our managers take reasonable suspicion and the HR training, that's a no-brainer. All right, wrapping it all up to tier 5. You're going to work on that policy and procedure manual first. AOs, you're going to work on your BCs, expectations, accountability, and communication. You're going to use the Linehaul Central driver manager training, give you the tools. I got a lot of those policies and procedures already built for you. You're going to use the skills every month. You're going to do the safety talks every week. You're going to do all of this stuff, and we're going to get you up to tier 5 gold. That was a lot. It's time to get to work. If you're interested on everything, go to Linehaul Central. I'm going to exit out of this real quick, and then I'm going to answer some questions. Okay, one question I got from was, how do DOT officers respond to mud flaps that are purposely taken off to avoid damage? That is a it's the number one thing to look at is making sure that the mud flaps are secure properly. So making that if they're bungee down or in the cab or something like that. But under the lead trailer, it's okay to do that. The regulation allows for that. So that was a good question. Anybody else have any other questions? Let me check on my question. Yep. Got it. Had a it's important that everyone the owner takes responsibility, and I mentioned that is absolutely true. Starts with the AO. It's important to do that. Then finding driver training on our site is if you log in and you log inside of our site is the training in the My Training. So if you log in as a manager and you go to My Training, your AO can assign training to you, or you can search the training library on things that you need help on and assign it to yourself. And then there's the training dashboard that has all of your drivers, but that's on the left-hand side. The next question is the HR driver training is we've got the manager training in there. I've got a couple little to finish on the driver training, but it'll be done here in just a second, in the next day or so. But those are good. The last question, where do I get my hair done? And they already know that. So listen, I know it's a lot, and I'm asking you to do a lot with the training, but I knew your problems are at the terminal. That's where they are. You've got to get to the terminal to do that. So send out the slides, send out a recording on this. This is, to me, the portion is the most critical part of your safety program. Just getting training through a safety vendor and just having, somebody complete a video not going to get you to tier 5 safety. Every one of my tier 5 guys, it is just the way they operate. I mean, on everything. It is in their operations. I really appreciate everybody being here today, and until the next time, thank you.